Welcome to That's So Rad podcast. I'm your host, Travis Vangsnes. This is a podcast about people, their passions, their life experiences, and their stories. As writer Frederick Buechner once said, the story of any one of us is in some measure the story of us all. All of us can learn something valuable from someone else's life and their stories. Join us for another conversation where we learn, laugh, and leave, seeing our own life in new ways. What's more rad than that? All right. Well, welcome to the latest edition of That's a Rad podcast. Your host, Travis. Really excited today to interview a good friend of mine. So the Rad Tour bus is back to Clinton, South Carolina for another interview. The previous episode was a friend of mine, Damon. So that was another great conversation of his life. And so we're going to talk to Danny Smith. Danny, just share a little about yourself, what you're up to these days.
I got to say first, it was awesome to hear Damon because we've run into each other through the years and kind of know each other. Over the past year, we've gotten to know each other a little more.
Oh, that's cool.
He's a cool guy. Like, he's got a lot of stuff going on, and he's just he's a good guy to know.
He is a very cool guy. Yeah. So, well, there we go. So we have guests here now starting to meet each other and know each other.
Yeah, but he talked about, I think, the do damage thing that he does with softball and stuff. And he does that in our building in town.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
okay, so you own the building that the den is in.
That the den is in.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
In there.
Fun fact.
But yeah, I don't know, Travis. You and I have been friends for a while. I live in the big city of Clinton, South Carolina, and got two kids. Got a son that's 21 and married. I've got a daughter that is going to be a junior at Anderson, and I've been married for like 20 something, 21, 22 years, something like that.
Ballpark it. It's always safe to just ballpark.
We're usually together, and she just says it.
I know.
But yeah, that's I grew up in Kentucky, and I've been in South Carolina since 2007. Love the state, and miss Kentucky, but I do love South Carolina, and met a lot of great people, such as yourself.
Oh, well, I'm honored you said that. So, well, we'll definitely be exploring in this conversation something about Kentucky. I'm really always excited about where they came from and their state and, what that means to them. So we'll definitely delve back into that. So, well, kind of the nature of these conversations has tended to be at the beginning. We're just going to, kind of share stories and memories about where our lives have intersected and, kind of funny or inspiring or random things that have happened. So, so you said in South Carolina since 2007. Jesse and I moved here in 2013. And Danny was one of the first people I would have met because what brought us down here from St. Louis was working at the children's home, Thornmill Home for Children, as it was called at the time, I believe. And there we go. So Danny, at the time you were on staff, you had been there, several years at that point?
Yeah, I've been there several years, and I was a consultant at the time, and I think when I first met you was in your interview.
Okay.
Do you remember that?
I do. That was like we were cross-examined for like 10 hours to be.
Yeah, we interviewed a lot of people, but I remember yours.
Okay. Well, that could be good. So to set that up a little bit more is that, Thornwell was, and is, but it's kind of the care model has changed through the years. But at the time we were there, it was definitely a large, children's congregate group home for kids in foster care of all different ages, housed in different large, what they called cottages. When Danny says as a consultant, that was, I guess, basically kind of an overseer of a certain number of those cottages. Would that be? And then the house parents that would have run those.
Yeah, we just supervise those cottages.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. So one of the cool things with Thornwell is, it definitely was probably one of the greatest children's home. I would probably arguably in the nation in terms of like just their history, but also just their resources. The great people they got. Gosh. So, it's not an exaggeration to say. It was it sometimes a 10-hour interview if you count the whole day?
Yeah. We
so. Yeah, but I mean that's what they needed, because it's like these kids don't. The last thing they need is other people are going to quit on them or just be there for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
So you guys weeded people out.
Well, part of the interview that you just made me think about this sometimes was going through and kind of role playing as if I'm a teenager and seeing how you react in certain situations with teenagers. And
Mm,
there were tears in a couple of those. So
okay. Uh,
I don't remember
t-
you crying, Travis, but there were tears
so
in those interviews.
so tears from the pressure or tears from the sadness of getting so real into the imagination of it?
No, it was more like tears in response to a teenager is not listening to you or making fun of you or
Oh.
calling you names. And let's see how you handle this as part of
Okay,
it.
so you guys being the teenagers.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So it's funny you say that, because I mean, looking back, I mean, you can't fully ever be prepared for tough things. But I mean, I before this came from, I worked at a substance abuse program in St. Louis for teenagers and was a mental health caseworker for like 7 years. So in terms of just kind of behaviors and seeing everything, I mean, I certainly saw that. So it was now just like living in a house with kids that can, have some big struggles. So.
Yeah.
But wow, memory lane. So, gosh, what do you remember of some of our days working together back at the children's home?
I mean, we just had like for a period of time there, and I'm not saying it's not great now, but for a period of time there, the people that were there, the way it was set up, it was just a great job. It was a great way to live. And I remember once we got you guys on campus, just the life that you brought. Like you always seem to have something going on, either fixing bikes or taking them on. It was always like, is this okay? Like
It always blurred the line.
not always, but you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah, yeah,
There were definitely things like that, but it's um, I always felt like the best adults that worked with kids, like you could see it because the kids would get interested in what the adults were interested in, whether it was
uh,
like Clemson football or mountain bikes or
yeah,
baseball, like anything that you're interested in, your favorite show, you would see that personality kind of form within the cottage.
yeah,
And that definitely was true for you and Jesse.
yeah. Well, so I'm on a podcast for where I work at America's Kids Belong called the Foster Friendly Podcast. So we're kind of unpacking stuff like this all the time, and I love that observation you said, because I think I was just talking about this on that podcast, but yeah, these kids that, especially when, maybe they've lost a father figure or have never had one, or same with a mother as well, but just the influence that you can make. And then, especially, yeah, when you can bring in, like, what was your hobby? What is something that you want to share with the kids? And it's amazing to see how receptive they were, So, like, when I worked with you, we were at a cottage with elementary and maybe a few middle school boys. And for me, it was all about mountain biking and fixing mountain bikes and things like that. And so I got all my guys into. I have pictures of this. Like, they were literally, you had 9 and 10-year-olds all wrenching on bikes, learning bike skills. And at one point, I remember the high schoolers on campus bringing their bikes to our kids to help have them fix them.
Yeah, I remember that. I mean, it was so cool to go over there and see you out on the like back porch with a bunch of boys with their shirts off, like working on bikes. I think
Yeah.
I think I brought my bike over and like, hired one of your guys to work on it for me or something.
That's super cool. Yeah. And so, like, and we got to build mountain bike trails in the woods. There was tons of acres and stuff like that. And it was such a cool outlet for, um, just to get out physical energy, to have creativity, to just get out in nature. And then, for all the kids that are dealing with really hard stories, I've shared this story before in other places, but like, um, and you have 100 stories to share, but I remember, a particular moment of with some of the boys, and we were out in the mountain bike trails, and a kid, we had a feather in his helmet, bike helmet, and he said, "Hey, Travis, we're warriors." And I remember in that moment just being so struck by the fact that, like, man, you're not. I mean, you think you're a warrior because you're a mountain bike. You're a warrior because the courage you're having in a story that's extremely hard. You don't know if you're ever going to go home again. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. and your bravery is inspiring me. And like, dude, that's why you're a warrior.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That type of stuff, like the older I get, the more I realize like that's what they're going to remember. That's like everybody's heard that quote about like people remember how you made them feel. I don't
yes,
exactly what it
yeah, Maya Angelou, yeah.
but that's what I think of like their experience. And we we started out at a group home in Illinois and worked there for 3 years. And several years after we were gone, we went back and met up with two of the girls that we had there. Um, they were maybe 6 and 8 at the time. And talking to them, like we're bringing up all this stuff, like, oh, do you remember this? Do you remember this? One of the main things that they wanted to talk about was what was going on at that time. Like,
Huh.
we don't really know why we were there. We don't like, was that your job? Did you guys have other jobs?
Wow, okay.
And so, like, I just took for granted, like, everybody knows what's going on. But you think about for a 6-year-old
Right.
that is told you're going to go stay with these people for a while. She, at 18, 19 years old, whatever she was, she really didn't understand that period in her life and wanted to get answers from us about what was going on. And
Yeah.
it really kind of shifted my perspective, but she didn't have a ton of memories of it. I had so many great memories with her. But when you're 6 years old, and I can think about when I'm in like kindergarten or first grade, I don't have a lot of memories of what
Right.
happened, but I remember how I felt. I remember my
Right.
teachers, and I just think about like you and Jesse and like other family teachers is what we call them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're not going to remember like the day-to-day stuff, but they're definitely going to remember like that's where I learned to work on a bike. And I don't remember the guy's name that was in charge of us there, but he taught me how to, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
we think of
Dude.
it so significant, but they may not even remember your or my name 20 years from now, but they'll think
Mm.
that I remember I was there. I don't really know why, but I learned to work on a bike and we just had, we had fun. And I think that's what they'll remember.
Wow. Yeah, man, that's well said. And it's really crazy because I no joke, like I literally was thinking about that quote interviewing you today because I was thinking of applying that quote to how I know you. I think her quote is something more broadly of like, people, will forget what you said or what you did, but they'll never forget how, the way you made them feel. And you're someone in my life as a good friend of mine that, I mean, that's how I feel like a lot of people see you. I see you that way. And, just like, we just know those people in our lives that like the way we feel around them is a gift. So big gift you're bringing with that. So,
Thank you, Travis. I feel the
yeah.
same about you. It's for some reason, it's like every time we get together, we'll say, hey, and then in like 30 seconds, we're on some deep topic or a funny topic, but
Yeah.
because we don't, it's not like we see each other every day, and
Right. Right.
we've gone months without even talking, and then
Yeah.
it seems like we get reacquainted, and then we're talking every day or whatever. But
Yeah. Yeah.
there's some people who it's just like I'm looking forward to seeing Travis because I know we're gonna have a great conversation. So the fact that you've chosen podcasting, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's cool. That's, I appreciate the feedback too. Yeah. So, well, that's the mark of, I think, a really good friend. You can just pick up and kind of
Yeah,
just immediately feel natural and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I mean, as we kind of reflect even a little bit more on just kind of that experience of meeting back, in this place, I'm just thinking too, it was a really interesting time where, very unique where, people would have come from maybe all over the country and kind of for this one same mission of, for a time, a season, being at this outpost of a children's home to just pour into kids in foster care. And, but the thing is because the campus was massive and sprawling and it had so much stuff there, it was this weird way of like, a lot of us were, say at the time, mid-20s and up and down from there. But like, you'd go to this place and housing was provided. It felt like you were going back to college to
yeah,
me with
yeah,
your kids, like with your kid, with a family.
yeah. There's definitely a sense of that, and it was such a good community, and
Yeah.
and it wasn't always the same community because just the nature of the work, people would come and go from that job a lot.
Yep.
But there were some like people that were just there throughout. But man, Ashley and I loved working there. It was definitely hard. It was the hardest thing we've done. It was stressful, but the way the schedule was set up, you'd be off for 5 or 6 days in a row, and you were off with half the campus at that time.
Right.
So half the people you knew were working, and then the other half were off. So like you said, we're mid 20s, late 20s. You're off with all your friends, and it's like, well, what are we going to do?
Right.
We've got nothing to do for 5 days.
Yeah.
Let's play cornhole. We were playing basketball at the Y. We were playing on beach trips, and like you said, housing was provided,
Right.
so that you didn't have all the stressors or worrying about that type of thing. And
Yep.
what I say about working with kids is any job, being a teacher or anything like that, is the kids should be your number one stress.
Mm.
And because it's hard to work with kids, it's hard to work with middle schoolers. I mean, anybody that's done it, it's hard.
Right.
But that should be hard. You expect that to be hard. You're working with them, and they don't want to be there a lot of times. They've been through difficult things. But then when you also have to worry about job stresses, and you don't like your boss, and you don't feel like the place is running very efficiently, that's the type of stuff that at Thornwell for a long time, like, all that was taken care of. We just had to worry
Right.
about
Right.
these kids a good way to live. And when family teachers and foster parents, when you're happy, when you're doing things with your friends, your kids, the kids that you have with you are just gonna get right in with that.
Yeah.
Like, we
Yeah.
were always out organizing a flag football game, or playing kickball, or riding bikes, coming up with stupid. We were always coming up with stupid games, like that we'd challenge the kids to ride in a circle and see if I could hit them with a dodgeball. Maybe I shouldn't say that on here, but
Well,
it's just like, you had to entertain yourselves. But when you're there with other people who you get along with, it really was ideal in a way. Like you mentioned, it kind of felt like we're back in college. Like,
right.
let's entertain ourselves while we're taking care of these kids.
Well,
I'm
okay.
it right now, just talking about it.
It's funny because when you say that, like that, you nailed it 100% right there. And if you can marry those two things, you're going to last and thrive.
Yeah.
If you can, we're going to be there. We're going to have fun doing what we kind of want to do, and then still with the kids,
Yeah.
and be, safe as you can. I mean,
Yeah.
and it is funny because when you said that, throwing the dodgeballs, I mean, we had a Fear Factor night one time. And, with kids that, have been removed from, into DSS care, that might have had food insecurity or all kinds of bad things around food. And we're like doing a fear factor, you don't even know what you're eating. And that hindsight on that one, but wasn't, but I got approval from you, I think. So
that was probably easy. I mean, that's stuff, like, again, like, we want them to remember something.
Yeah.
We want them to remember being here. A lot of them, you didn't know how long you were going to have them.
Right.
But I always wanted kids to feel, and of course I wasn't perfect at it. I'm not trying to set myself up as like that, but I wanted kids to feel loved, and also like we're having a good time. I was at this place. I don't remember what it was called.
Yeah.
But they treated me well. I could tell they loved me, and we had fun together. And I think there's a lot of kids, and there's been kids who have publicly come out and, kind of bashed Thornwell and other groups and things. I think there's a lot of kids out there that will say, I didn't really want to be there,
right,
but they took care of me and we had a good time. And I'm proud of that. And maybe I'm looking at things with rose-colored glasses, but I know there were a lot of good times, and we did good work with kids.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I'm in the space, like I said, of foster care marketing nationally and all this stuff with what we're doing and recruiting. And I have a special place in my heart for group care in when it's done well and right. We've seen a lot of that disappear through the Family First Act and going upstream, to really support bio families better, which 100% agreed. I just think that there is always going to be a gap in care. And I think the place that a good group home can do, and in my opinion, especially teenagers, that when there's a lot of love and support, and it's, good checks and balances with staff, bad things can happen anywhere, but rightly, there's a lot of bad stuff around group care. There was just terrible group homes that should have shut down and did. But it's not, everybody can't be lumped in the same thing. And so I think when, especially kids that are like, we're looking back, that upper elementary upper teenager, where you're in sort of, I mean, you're in foster care, to be honest, with peers, man. I mean, choose what you'd want to be in, I mean, there's a ton of good reasons why being in a licensed individual home to have maybe more one-on-one attention is better in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
But for some kids, I think there's something about that peer campus, and we're like fun everywhere and so much, I mean, we're trips everywhere and a big budget for stuff. I mean, you know what I mean? So it's like, yeah.
Yeah. I love lately, like, because we've done it for, well, I shouldn't say we've done it for so long. We started when we were so young that it took a while, but like once you see a kid come up and graduate and become an adult, it totally changes your perspective on things.
Sure.
Like suddenly when you see that behaviors from an 8 or 9-year-old, they don't matter as much anymore.
Right.
It's like, yeah, they're acting crazy today, but it's okay. Like they're gonna mature in different ways. And like we've just had so many kids reach out to us and come back and like come over to our house. We had a girl that just stopped by the office, and she's in her 30s now. I'm like, how did that happen?
Man, right.
We had you when you were a teenager, but
yeah,
I just love seeing kids do well. And even if they're not like, they don't have to be like killing it and everything's going right in their lives, but to see them trying and living and making mistakes and they're doing it. It gives you such a different perspective. We've got a kid that just, maybe I shouldn't say his name on here, but he started his own roofing company.
Cool.
We had damage in the hurricane, had a limb come through the roof, and got reacquainted with him. We've seen him off and on through the years, but he did our roof, and I'm just so proud of him. Like starting his thing, and because he's like every young kid in their 20 to 25, he went through some stuff that like peaks and valleys, ups and downs. But I'm just proud of him. He's doing well, and I feel like I was there for him when he needed me to be.
Dude, that gave me chills, because as you just said that, I was thinking there's something powerfully symbolic to me of him doing your roof, because in a way you gave him a roof, sheltering a storm of all that time, and then sort of this thing of he's doing your roof.
I didn't even think of it. You better write a story.
Ah, man. Well,
touch with him. He's we butted heads probably more than any other kid I've worked with, and that we joke around and tease each other still, and talk about that, but we've talked about this kid before and this situation, but I'm just proud of him.
Yeah. That's very cool, man. I love to hear that, or you can have the kids come back and update you on life, so I mean, but that was just the chapter of our lives. I mean, of just, so much camaraderie and really cool people there, and just fun with the kids. And so, it was a cool time to be together out there.
Yeah. We've got this St. Louis connection too.
Oh, we do. Yeah. And I'm repping the Blues shirt today. So
shirt.
What's our St. Louis connection again?
Well, all my family is from St. Louis.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. You lived there. So every time you'd go on a trip there, or I'd go on a trip there, we'd kind of compare where we'd been and talk about getting some Emo's pizza or something.
Toasted Rav and gooey butter cake. You just name it all. That is true. Yeah. And then actually your fam is it St. Charles, or where's
they were from? They live in,
or they're all over.
A lot of them live in St. Charles now, but Ferguson area.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Pizza was the big one for them.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So we also have a kindred love of station wagons.
Yes, we do.
This was discovered. So
and I don't think I copied you on it. I've always loved station wagons, but we talked about this.
Yep.
That you had yours first for sure. So maybe in the back of my mind, I was trying to copy you when I bought mine.
Well, what is it? Flattery is what's the line there? It's copying is the sincerest form of flattery, or something like that. Okay, so, but the question is, let's go back in time. So I'm 45. How old are you now?
43.
43. Okay, that's 2 years there. Were you back facing in an 80s Buick Caprice Classic in the late 80s, early 90s?
We always had a Chevy station wagon.
Okay.
My dad's a Chevy guy.
Okay, doesn't have to be a Buick, and Chevy and Buick are both GM, right?
Yeah.
So,
but we always had a Chevy with the rear facing seat.
okay.
He would always build a little bed in the back when we were traveling to St. Louis to see our family. So 2 kids in the middle seat, 1 man down in the back. He's still a Chevy guy to this day, which doesn't make sense because every trip our station wagon would break down on the side of the road. We were talking about that. I think last time I was with him, we were reminiscing like of a time where the station wagon kept overheating.
Okay.
Every I don't know, I was a kid. But anyway, it kept overheating and we'd have to pull off to the side of the road and
that's the worst.
Get sent down to like a little cow creek with a milk jug or an empty 2-liter and have to fill water to bring it back.
Fill the radiator? Oh my gosh. How's he filtering like leaves and brush out of that? It's just like
through his beard.
We're just straining the beard over the radiator. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But you made the newspaper with your station wagon. I believe it was nicknamed the Grocery Getter. So
yeah. So like and I actually was going to show a picture of this on here for all of you watching. So I had growing up, I feel like I grew up in North Dakota. We had no money, man. I feel like into the late 90s, we're still rocking wagons. And so I don't, gosh, it's a mix of fondness and sort of disdain. Riding, it felt like you were like, you're always backwards facing at a stop sign and your teacher's behind you or whatever. And like in a small town, you can't look away. It's like
a girl you're afraid to talk to in class.
Exactly. That rear facing, what that did for social situations could be a whole documentary. Like what that did to a generation. But so my quick story of it is, I was previously married and my previous ex-wife just left our marriage, and this is early 2000s, 2004, somewhere in there. And as you can imagine, the fallout and kind of just coping with life again and trying to just like, who am I now single and how do I navigate, right? And
you did what most rational people would do.
I conceptualized a giant station wagon that's going to be ridiculous. And but it is funny because I was actually reminiscing on this or thinking a while back of like, it really was like humor, and this thing of like this station wagon represented part of my healing. I mean, it is crazy. Yeah, because I remember it was at the lowest point of my life, and at times, I grieved all that, continued to grieve it, but it was also like I needed moments of just like something light. And I remember this hit me in my mind of like, I got it. I'm going to buy this old giant station wagon, paint it up ridiculous, and that's going to be my car. And so what it was came down to South Carolina at some point after this in the story and bought this car in Charlotte. It's like a Caprice Buick Estate, whatever it was. And I painted. And so what it was supposed to do is make fun of a couple things. One was mocking the Dukes of Hazzard car. So I had 01 doors, like the black 01 and orange doors.
You're asking for a fist fight around here by mocking the General Lee.
Dude, I went into a hornet's nest with this thing. But this is before like social media and stuff. So like, so you're right. I'm coming down to the south of this thing from at the time it got birthed down here. What am I talking about?
You would have been perfect. You were like 10 years too early on TikTok, Instagram.
Oh my gosh, what this could have been.
Account for that.
What this could have been. So if you can get in on this here. Now, what we don't see, so on the back, you can see the grocery getter with a bag. The front of the hood, on top of the hood, had a giant bag of groceries with grocery getter. And then if you can look in, there's the doors, the 01. And here's the mockery of the Dukes of Hazzard, the Dollar General Lee. So above the '01 was the yellow and black, like the store, right?
Did you paint it yourself?
Yeah, yeah, me and my brothers. And the joke of it is that we were in this really badly ventilated place, just spraying paint. And it was like we were just tripping. I mean, I think ideas were evolving as we're doing it. Like, let's put a bag, right? And so and it had the Dukes of Hazzard horn on it too. And yeah, so that
Where is
anyway.
it now?
Okay, so the end part of the story. So I move up to, I think, South Dakota was where I got my footing. I went to school in Iowa, so I had a friend in South Dakota. Moved there for a while, but really that car became its home in St. Louis, actually. So that was my daily driver for like 2 years. I mean, I have friends that are like, dude, I saw you come to a job interview in that thing. I was like, that's all I had. But I ended up driving it for, maybe another year in St. Louis. This is like '07, whatever, '06, right before I met Jesse. And wasn't maybe another 6 months. I had another carb at that point, and then I was like, I just can't. The gas, I need another paycheck for the gas.
And I feel like you're somebody that likes to talk to strangers. So every time you're out, people asking you about it.
Again, that's another thing of this. Just was on the fringe of, I mean, MySpace was going down, which I don't even remember. Like, did we chat on that? I don't, but smartphones didn't really exist yet. And so, like, all I do remember though is everywhere we stopped, phones, pictures. But yeah, there was a lot of people like, oh man, dude, your car that's so hilarious. Or it was kind of like, I felt like I'm bringing laughter where I go, partly
Yeah.
for my own healing. Like,
Yeah.
I need to laugh, but wherever we go, it's just ridiculous
I
thing.
mean,
So
because you can't be sad. You can't take yourself too seriously
it
when you're driving the grocery getter.
100%. You can't be too sad. You can't, right. And I remember I was staying at a low budget when I was getting my feet on the ground in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, as I'm kind of starting this new chapter. And I get this like, low budget hotel. And I had some of the people as I'm getting started, and some people, or it was like a long term stay. Yeah, kind of one of those. And they're going, I was talking to this guy. He's like, there's kind of rumors around here that like you have a drug car there or something. And I'm like, because that would be what you would want to haul. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's
It's
the
a
most ridiculous, over the top.
good way to lay low. I think the biggest thing is, with your recent breakup, it's kind of like, well, look at me now.
Look at me now.
Look at me now.
Well, this is to that point, dude. Let me tell you this. Okay, me and my bro Dan. Shout out to you, Dan, because he was, you remember all those that were with you, right, supporting
Yeah.
it. Dan comes with me on this road trip to my new kind of chapter, which was to move back up to, I guess, South Dakota at the time. And this was the journey of the grocery getter, and it kind of means this. That's sort of my new life is. So we're rolling up through the city I lived in Napanee, Indiana, where we had lived in together. And I guess we thought, at the time she was maybe still working there, hadn't, touched anymore. And we come up and going through the town, small town, hit the horn. And yeah, and it was just like, that was sort of what you're saying. Like, look at me now and hear what you did. That thing just went by.
I'm like picturing like a '90s country song. Like you
It
got
was, it was CCR. We had that blaring. Yeah, no joke. Or Tom Petty. I can't, one of the two. Free falling maybe. And it was just hit that horn and like,
I'm
all
saying
right.
I'm saying the whole story arc is a country song.
Oh, this.
Country song. And it peaks with you driving through the hometown.
Here we go.
Blasting.
So that's.
Fortunate son.
Oh man, yeah. So you in 2015 or so, we were talking about this before we got on here. You bought a giant Chevy.
It was a Buick.
A Buick. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, in my free time at that time and still today, as of a couple hours ago, I'm always looking at cars on like Marketplace, or it was probably Craigslist at the time. But I've always loved wagons, and I just kept thinking about wagons. And this one, it was an '87 Buick Electra, and we went and saw
Oh.
it, and I was in love. It had wood grain on the side. But it was in really good shape. So yours was like a punk rock thing. I was
Yep,
driving.
yep.
I'm not trying to be highfalutin here, but I was driving a gentleman's wagon. So
And it was white too, wasn't it? Two
it was
tone with
white,
white.
it was
Oh
white
man.
with the wood grain along.
And just was it just the plush seats, like basically a couch on wheels?
it was two couches, and
Oh
then
my
it
gosh.
had the rear facing third row.
Oh man.
Me and some friends from Thornwell took it to Columbia one time, and like you said, like it's just a joyful experience driving that
Oh
thing.
yeah. It's just
Because
there.
I mean, it's better than like the reaction you get is way better than like if you're driving a Dodge Viper or whatever.
Yes. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But I wasn't used to driving a vehicle like that. It was so heavy, and it didn't have analog brakes, so it
Oh,
was
okay.
raining on us. And I was stopping at a stoplight, and I did almost rear end somebody with the
Wow.
largest vehicle ever made.
Well, you would have won that one. I
Yeah,
mean, that actually tells me actually the end of my story on that was when you said made the paper. I did put it on eBay, and it got bought up and was a guy that was gonna demolition derby. Which I mean, we know wagons. That's where the graveyard for them.
yeah,
Like that's the final destination of a wagon
yeah,
is a demo derby because that chassis. I mean, you could hit a tank and
yeah.
it'll hold its own. So
That's when I got it. I posted a picture on Facebook. Like my dad and uncles and my grandpa and my grandpa's brother, they all wanting to talk to me about. Oh, we had an '88 or we had a.
we had an 88.
It's got a V8. It's got a. I'm not a car guy, but like
Right.
it's that's got a 450 in it, doesn't it? And I'm like, I don't know. You didn't ask or whatever. But it was just such a great conversation piece, and I just
Oh
love it.
yeah.
It's the type of car you just go out and look at. You just
Yeah, it is.
look at it.
Well, it's like you're driving nostalgia. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
a bygone era, and I think most people have a really. I mean, you might have got car sick or been embarrassed by it growing up, but like most people, it's just memories of childhood.
Yeah.
It's just like,
And
it's like
here's my question though: why has that not been more of a thing? Because nostalgia is always huge, and like when you look at guys in like when we were growing up, everybody had like a '67 Camaro
sure,
or like a '60s truck or '70s truck. It was from when they were growing up. That's what they wore.
right.
They couldn't afford it then, but they can now. And I feel like the '80s and '90s. Where is that as far as vehicles? Where are the comeback vehicles?
So we're not talking just wagons now. You're general, okay? Because
I mean, I think about it with wagon. Like, you don't see anybody else driving a classic wagon around. That's like original.
well, that's a good point. So first of all, I wanted to camp out just on wagons because that's where I thought you were going. So we know like Volvo has traditionally carried a wagonish,
I
but
love I love Volvo wagons. I had one of
okay.
those. I had
Oh,
one.
did you?
Yeah. I
Okay,
had
so
one too.
and does Volvo still around? Do they still make
Yeah.
cars? Okay,
I
so
think
I
they
think
still have the wagon.
they still make. I mean, they've always carried a wagon, right?
I don't know I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they don't today, but they
It,
make a recent wagon.
yeah, right. Recent. Okay, so the only close ones I can. So the Dodge Magnum on the
Yeah.
same as the Charger. I had a Magnum in St. Louis. That was that was my one kind of cars that I wanted to have it, which was, and I think they were terrible at like, I don't know, like I don't. It was one of my most unreliable cars. They looked killer. It was like, dude, put that a muscle wagon, right?
Yeah.
But there's never been. Now we've seen wood grain make a comeback on the PT Cruiser, correct? I mean,
But it's a PT Cruiser. I mean,
right, right. But I guess like the true wagon in that size, or the Buick from what's the family truckster on the Griswold. I mean,
I don't know
like
what.
so that was a newer one. That was the early '90s, right? It's a little smaller than the '80s wagons, but like that never came back.
I'm seeing some wood grain on the new. What's the expensive Jeep?
Um,
The Wagoneer.
the Wagoneer,
I'm,
okay,
I think wood grain is an option on the Wagoneer.
but isn't the retro Bronco an '80s? I mean, like if we started the name off, would we get into like, okay, that's an '80s remake? I mean,
The new, I like the new Broncos. I wanted one, but I just don't buy new cars. But I don't know. I feel like that was more a throwback to like the 60s and 70s. Everybody loves the 60s and 70s Broncos. The 80s Broncos,
Okay, so that's not an 80s Bronco. Yeah, so it predates that.
I don't think people have much love for the 80s Broncos. Like even
Okay.
OJ had a
But
92 or 95 or something like that.
but look at like the 80s Mustang too, right? Isn't that, I mean, I'm not a Mustang purist or anything, but like isn't that a not well regarded,
Probably not. I mean,
like was
the 80s, like what did they make with a lot of staying power?
I was going to say the DeLorean flamed out. I mean, what's an 80s car that's just like legendary? That
I don't know if there is one. What's a 90s car that's legendary?
gosh, we're just
Like, it's
revealing.
like
We're
I get it that the older guys want something from their teenager.
yeah.
That's what or like my dad drove this, something like that. But I'm not seeing the same thing in 80s and 90s cars. Maybe it's because they were all rusted out, quality went down. I don't know, but I don't see the same love for nostalgia right now with vehicles.
Well, I just wonder if though if the 80s, I mean, some really knock the 80s just as a generally as you know, and it still came around and some love it, but the style of the 80s gets knocked a lot.
Yeah,
But maybe that went to vehicles as well because aren't all of the retro muscle cars 70s? Like the isn't it like the traditional Challenger, the
60s and
Charger,
70s.
60s, 70s?
That's what everybody wants. But even the late 70s, I think you're getting away from like what people wanted. But I don't know. I'm just surprised. Maybe it'll still come around because even if you feel like the cars in the 80s were ugly, this should still come. There should still be a comeback. Like
A
everybody's
comeback.
wearing mom jeans now,
Right. So
which
what's the mom jeans of cars that isn't coming back or has never come
we
back?
we need to get ahead of that and buy up all of the like BT Cruisers or whatever you mentioned. What was everybody driving in the 90s?
In the
Like
90s?
in the 90s, all my friends had either
Okay.
an S10 or a Ranger.
Okay. Or Pontiac Grand Dams. Remember the Grand Am for like $8,000 new? I
We had a
mean,
we had a Sunbird.
okay.
My dad bought two Sunbirds. He bought one that was wrecked in the front and one that was wrecked in the back.
Oh, jeez.
And through,
Put them
through
together.
a series of magic that happened in the garage, we ended up with one great car out of that.
Gosh, now we're just gonna leave this podcast, and everyone is what are 80s cars that are beloved that we're just like blanking out on here.
I'm I want to get a wagon again. I've been back on it. I sold the other one because we were getting ready to travel for a year.
Yep.
And I didn't have a garage. I didn't have anywhere to put it. I'm like, this thing's too nice for me just to keep outside. So I did sell it, but I totally regret selling that, and I want to get another one.
Well, I mean, you're perusing marketplace and stuff. I mean, I saw one of the. Did I send you? It was one of the funniest ads I've ever seen on a car, and it was a wagon recently.
I don't think you did.
Oh my gosh, I gotta find that.
Yeah, send that to me.
All right. Well, had to talk wagons. That's it's part of our childhood and part of our
Part of our connection.
connection. Yeah. So okay, so we're gonna get through a few more things here, and then we're gonna turn this fully towards your life. So a couple later things after we left that place that we were talking about earlier, Thornwell. You speaking of connection, I've had a strong connection of you helping me on things, and I'm kind of lamenting as I'm thinking of like, wow, where have I been there for you? So maybe that's an accountability thing here of like in this year, I need to step up for you because
You do.
you helped edit one of my books.
Yeah.
Okay. You helped me build a cabin. You helped on our latest land. We have a geodesic dome. You pulled a 250-pound canvas cover with me and one other guy over the frame of that monster in the rain in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And
That
what
was
if
a proud moment because we just kind of had no idea what we were doing.
we didn't? Yeah. And you haven't been out there yet. I mean, I need to I owe you big time. I mean, you have to get out there.
Yeah, I'll come out.
You actually got to get out there and stay there. See your handiwork out there. I am thinking long and hard here of ways that I have been there for you.
Well, you put me on a podcast.
Okay, so put you on a podcast. Now I am okay. This could be a good segue into the next thing because I am always repping your band, Wasperjaws.
And that's enough. You do.
Okay, so that's I mean, and maybe just owing you like I don't know, like let's say a back rub. That's weird. Maybe there's okay. We'll think about what else could go along with this, but okay. I'll tip you off to a wagon if I can. So
Yeah, let me know. But you have been a great hype man for Wasperjaws.
and
Yeah, I appreciate that.
well, thank you. So that's a perfect segue because I wanted to talk. We're going to get more into Wasperjaws later in this conversation,
Okay.
but the cliffhanger or the on the front edge of this thing is that. So let's just briefly. You have a band, Wasperjaws. You describe it as stylistically. What'd you say?
In-law country.
In-law country,
Mm-hmm.
which is indie folk rock inspired.
I would call it. I mean, I really consider it folk music, but everything has a connotation.
Okay.
So when you talk about folk music, it's not really.
Yeah.
I like folk music because it's just normal, regular
Yep.
people that work
Yep.
jobs. So that's music, and that's what we do. So
Yep.
I consider it a style of folk music, but I call it in-law country because outlaw country has had a like major comeback in the past few years, and they're singing about like drugs and whiskey,
right.
and then like,
Yeah.
well, I'm a middle-aged guy that just tries to follow the law for the most part. So I started calling it in-law country, as maybe it doesn't describe the music as much as
Right.
the attitude.
Well, that you saying that really then helps describe it. And by the way, that's a killer dope trucker hat, and it says that on there, in-law country at the. Yeah.
Have you heard of hat fishing?
No.
I just heard this term and I thought it was hilarious. It's when a guy like me wears a hat but he's bald underneath.
Okay.
They call it getting hat fished.
Oh, okay. So if you're on a date or whatever, and you're like,
Yeah,
or
like you meet somebody.
your profile,
Yeah,
catfished.
I got hat.
Oh my. Man, women, you're so petty.
I know. I don't have to.
Gosh, I mean,
very petty. Yeah.
that's just so okay. So where I wanted to set this up, and then we'll get back into this later in the conversation, was recently, and I talked about this in the previous episode with Damon of so my brother Jeremy, we'll talk about him probably a lot on these podcasts, but had suffered a traumatic brain injury in 2009. One of our good friends and also one of your band members, Everett Conaway, designed what's called a Feetar, which allows, so Jeremy has very little movement in his body, basically trapped in his body, fully there though, and he can spell stuff, but has no voice, but he can move his left foot and left arm. And Everett designed a 6-string tuned up, just really created this instrument called the Feetar. It's amazing. And it's an amazing piece of work. And anyway, Jeremy has jammed on that. We put a pick on his foot, right? Like so he can move the foot and then he can play the notes. And hadn't played that thing for like 4 or 5 years. Just had kind of sat, got dusty, and I was like, let's break this thing out again. So we, but before that, I sat with Jeremy. I said, dude, I'd love you to play the Feetar again. And all the stuff. And then he spelled out to me the message. He's like, I will do that if you play an instrument. So I was like, oh man, I mean, I trumpet, I haven't played since 99, 98. I don't know what and so I looked up what's the easiest stringed instrument. And one of them was the ukulele. So ordered a ukulele off Amazon, started learning some notes. Fast forward, Wasperjaws, the band, is kind enough to, and they love Jeremy, and so come together and do this collab thing together that we were filming because we're also filming a documentary. And we have some amazing footage of you guys jamming with Jeremy and the Feetar. Any other thoughts around that?
I mean, it's like I said, like the day after or whatever. Jeremy is the greatest Feetar player in the world. I mean, he really is.
I mean, right? So
You're not the greatest ukulele player.
no, I
With your level of experience and practice so far, you really got something. So
okay.
I,
Well,
I love that he pushed you into that.
I thank you for saying both those things. A, for Jeremy, because it's good for him to know he is the greatest Feetar player,
Yeah.
but also it's good to know that, I mean, I have a long ways to go on the ukulele, but I will say this. No, let me say this. I don't talk about this. I don't think since we jammed, but I was spending every day just trying to get down like basically one finger chords for the most part.
Yeah.
Like, how can I hack this thing? And I had some stuff that was sounding okay, but like, and then once I was invited to play one of your songs, I was told by Dave, I guess, to play the G chord and just keep strumming that. Dude, let me say this, okay? Some of my best friends from the area are here. Don't know Dave well, but he's a cool guy. Know your wife Ashley too. So basically, really know the band. Man, I was nervous, and I don't get nervous easy on stuff. But man, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just.
Intimidating.
It's intimidating. Like trying to like also never being in a band and kind of
Yeah. Well,
pretending I'm picking too. Like you guys.
but it is way easier to play when you're with people that know what they're doing, and you can just kind of like get in the rhythm in the background. You're not carrying everything.
Yeah, I know, but I guess there was a part of me though that felt I'm going to be really exposed, or
Yeah.
that I'm going to jack up your song. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, what's this plinky, ukulele that has no business?
Well, I mean, I relate to what you're saying because I came to music late. I didn't grow up playing anything. Um, I started
Okay,
I started like messing around with a guitar when I was like maybe a senior in high school, but
gotcha.
I didn't play in front of anybody at all. Me and Ashley did a couple small things in college, but
Wow.
I
Okay.
hated, I hated even playing guitar in front of people. You just feel like everybody's looking
Yeah.
at you, and
Yeah.
I really didn't start singing in front of people until I was in my 30s. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That's wild. Okay, so I'm fascinated because I really want to explore that. That's the very things you're starting to set up on. That's awesome. So I'm gonna, for those of you watching on YouTube, which encourage you to do so. Partly see Danny's cool Wasperjaws hat, and I mean, just I feel like we're decently looking middle aged dudes, right? I mean, so
very
I don't
good luck.
know. Yeah, thank you. Um, we're gonna play a few short clips of Jeremy jamming with Wasperjaws. So check that out right here.
Jesus is near. Jesus is near to broken hearted. Comfort and joy, a love like we never known.
All right. Pretty cool, huh?
That was
I
fun.
mean,
It
that
really
was
was,
fun.
it was a fun day. One of the things is like we don't, as a band, we don't get together and play all the time. When we were recording, we did it a lot more, but that was just kind of like it was good to be back together and like jamming and playing our songs.
Man, wow.
And to have Jeremy there too. I was going to tell you one of the things I love about Jeremy is he like he'll say what he thinks
Yeah.
and he doesn't just go along with things. Like
No,
when you asked him to play the Feetar, he was like, "I'm not going to do it unless you'll do something too."
for sure.
And
Absolutely, dude.
I remember another time we were with Jeremy and me and you were talking about something and he started spelling something out and it was change the topic please or something like that.
No, dude, sometime when we're hanging out, Jeremy has a caregiving journal of like, quotes he's just spelled. And I mean, his sense of humor, like this is the underrated thing that a lot of people aren't aware of because what is shared on social media is a lot of the sort of inspirational faith stuff. But like he has quotes that are just, I mean, daggers on caregivers. Like, and they're like, oh my gosh, dude, you're cold. I mean, there's things, I mean, and aside from that, but like there'll be times where we're like having a good conversation around and he'll spell out, take that conversation to another room. And I'm like, dude, I haven't heard that since I was in fifth grade from my dad. Take that conversation elsewhere. I mean, it's like, okay, dude. But yeah, I mean,
But nobody observed, like, I mean, just
no.
the nature of what he's going through, nobody
It,
observes more than Jeremy does.
it,
And
it's,
just, it's easy to forget that. Because,
oh, for sure. Right. And just like how annoying we could be, or like if someone's droning on and you're right next to him, he's like, dude, just get out of here. Like,
I can't move, but can you guys please
I
leave?
can't move, but you need to. Man? Oh my God.
I really do love that about him though, because he's, like you said, like this stuff, he's a very positive person. Like,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
but like you said, like the daggers, like he'll hit you with
Oh
one.
my gosh. I wish I had some right in front of me right now, but like, oh my gosh, the things he spelled out to some of the caregivers and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
oh geez. So, well, okay. So I feel like that was kind of a good opening. We went all over the place, station wagons and fishing hats and all kinds of stuff. I think we can set that to rest. Do you feel like?
Yeah, I feel good.
Okay. Well, what I like to do at this point is, kind of where our lives converge and stories and memories. So at this point, through the rest of the conversation, I want to go and really just highlight Danny and his life and just kind of things he's learned, things he's up to and doing. I think, the whole point of this podcast is it's about learning from each other and, just being inspired by other people's stories and what they're learning too. So, you good? You needed a stretch?
I'm good. Ashley just walked in, so I waved to her.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but we're good.
Okay. Good deal. We'll get
She,
Ashley.
she actually loves to hear me talk about myself, so I think this will be.
Man, well, sometime we got to get Ashley on so it can be more fair to what you're
I might
saying.
pull up a chair and just listen to what I have to say. I'm not sure. Travis has seen the good, bad, and ugly because we're in a book
Oh
club,
yeah, yeah.
kind of a marriage support group deal.
It is a peer support group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
No,
something
that's
you've
good.
done for me, and I know I'm getting
Oh,
but that's
no,
something.
that's good.
Yeah, you get me involved in things that I wouldn't just volunteer for. So
Okay. Well, thanks for saying that. Yeah, it's
great.
kind of selfish too because I like being around you and then I'm always really impacted by you. So it's like, hey, this group would be better, if we recruit this guy. So
Well,
that's
it's been a lot of fun. So
yeah. Okay, so all right, so you kick this thing off, giving a little bit of overview. You came from Kentucky. I know that's a huge part of sort of just woven into the DNA of Danny Smith, your state, your home state. Just looking back at your youth, what were some formative things that did shape you as you look back?
mm, I mean, the main thing is how I grew up and where I grew up, which was in the Appalachian Mountains, in a very rural part of Kentucky. And we grew up. My parents worked at a camp, and they retired last year, but they're doing camp one more time, so they kind of still work there. But I grew up at camp, so even in the off season, we lived right next to a camp with a softball field, a gym, a pond, a swimming pool, swings. it was just a great place to grow up. And I had a lot of freedom. I had a go-kart and a dirt bike at one point, a bike. And I don't know. I see how kids grow up now, and I'm like so thankful for where I grew up and the way I grew
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
So for sure, that's the most formative thing about how I grew up. It was a camp, and I saw my parents having to come up with, how are we going to have fun with these kids for the week? And so, like, going back to our conversation,
Yeah.
no, that influenced the way I thought about like being around kids in foster care. Like, it's going to be boring today unless we come up with an activity today. And that was my whole childhood revolved around that type of stuff.
That is, man, we got to talk about this for a while. So I think the first time I heard this, I thought by camp, what it really was is you grew up like in a circus family, and you were just like not saying that, but I,
This is
but
it still is. It's a Christian. It's called a Bible camp. It's a Christian camp for kids. It's a ministry that's meant
yeah,
to be something for kids that otherwise wouldn't have access to a summer camp for them to come.
that's super cool.
Yeah.
No, I'm just joking. So the, was it a year round? Was it truly a summer? So,
Yeah.
okay. Cause when you say you grew up, I mean, largely in the summer, that's all you were part of, but
Yeah, but they worked for a mission full time, and the mission's main thing was to do the camp.
okay.
So in the off season, you'd have weekend retreats and rental groups. Just gearing up for the summer camp was the big thing. Taking care of my dad was like in charge of maintenance and taking care of the grounds and mowing, weed eating, making sure the buses ran, all that type of stuff. So it really was like that was your life.
Wow. And you were part of that experience from what age to what, like, age?
I was.
Yeah.
They worked there when I was born. So
Wow. Okay.
I was born in 81, and I think they
Okay.
were in like maybe 78 or 79.
Okay.
Lived in a trailer at the top of the hill on the campgrounds when I was born, and then when I was maybe 6, my dad built a house down the hill.
Okay.
It's where they still live.
Gotcha.
But I mean,
I mean, up through high school, were you still?
yeah.
Or wow. So you didn't tap out and go, I'm too cool. I mean, it was just like,
No, I worked there through high school.
okay.
I mean, I loved it. We had people that would come. We had a lot of groups from like Ohio, Cincinnati. I
Okay.
had friends that would come back every summer, and it felt cool because back then, like during the summer, I probably wouldn't see any of my friends from school all summer. I mean, it's not like that anymore.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
texting every day you're texting.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't talk to them all summer, and that was just kind of normal. But I had all these new friends coming to camp that it was just a great time in my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I loved it, and I love Kentucky, the hills and the seasons. We'd be out of there's a lot of gravel roads around there.
Yep.
When it would snow, I remember one time we were out from like Halloween until the New Year, just because it snowed and didn't melt, and the buses couldn't get through.
Wow.
So, I loved living there. We would sled all the time. Like I was just telling somebody the other day, we had a hill above our driveway, and then it went across our driveway. And when I was a kid, we had two barbed wire fences. So you'd sled down, and then when you got to the barbed wire fence, you just lay down in your sled. You go under both fences and then down the next hill. That's where they still live. So I go back there all the time. So it's not like it's kind of a nostalgic thing, but
That's awesome.
Great childhood.
If you were to say, what's the ethos of Kentucky? I mean, and maybe that's a little bit of it's kind of a nuance, but it's because, I mean, you're in the South, you're a few states away in South Carolina, which have some commonalities, but is there a distinct thing, if you could say some traits of Kentucky?
I don't know. United we stand, divided we fall is our
okay.
state phrase or state motto. The people there, like it seems like people are allowed to make fun of Appalachian people still. Like that's a group you're allowed to make fun of.
Okay.
And the people there are great. It's in our town, like everybody knows each other, everybody knew each other, but they're hospitable. They care about you. Like
Yep.
they just truly want the best for you. We had great teachers. It wasn't like this backwoods thing that, and kind of in one of my songs in Lucky in Kentucky, I kind of addressed that because this new trend with songwriters is there a bunch of them are from Kentucky, and it's like
Mm.
they're really playing up the coal miner and farmer. And
Okay.
I'm like, I mean, that is a big part of the culture there, but it
It's
just
over
seems like
stereotyped, kind of like
it's
over.
kind of like using that stereotype because people like it. People like
Oh, okay. Yep.
authentic people. People,
Yep.
you want to meet an authentic guy that grew up in the hills and has
Sure.
been in the coal mines, and there are people like that,
Yeah.
uh, and they're the one thing I love about Kentucky is, and you see it because there's a lot of good songwriters, there's a lot of good writers. Um, there's a humor there that I haven't seen in other places,
Mm.
and I don't even know how to describe it, but it's just kind of like a lot of the men there have a humor to them that you don't see in a lot of places, and I don't
Kind
know
of
what
like a self-deprecating, or sort of just a way of viewing life in a coping way, maybe you think, or
it's almost like seeing life with a um, like a gleam in your eye.
okay. Oh, okay. That way of it. Okay.
Like life is hard. It's been
Yep.
hard. It's going to be hard, but
Yeah.
they see the absurdity of things,
Yeah. Okay.
and like a lot of it is like, and I'm trying to generalize like just an attitude that I
Yeah.
get from there, but it's almost like it's like you don't have to say it. We don't have to say anything. Like you'll just get a look from somebody, and it's like okay, like he's seeing what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. But
That's
there's a lot of characters. Like everybody's got a character in their family, and there's characters that everybody knows in town. And when I say characters, it's just people that are just known for certain things. Maybe they're unique in a certain way. But I don't know why. I mean, maybe that's
yeah.
because I like humor, and
Yeah.
like if you've listened to John Prine's music or read like Wendell Berry, his books,
Yeah.
John
Love
Prine
him.
had a big Kentucky connection, and
Okay.
the humor, there's sadness to those the way they write songs and
Yep.
write music. There's tragedy, but the thing that's a thread throughout is humor, and
Humor.
I think that's a big part of where I grew up.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, it's do you feel like your family's a humorous family?
They are like my dad, especially. I think is a funny person.
Okay.
It's he's one of those people. It's kind of hard to make him laugh. So when he laughs, you feel proud of it. but,
Nice.
but we grew up like watching the Andy Griffith Show together, and
Okay.
I still think like as far as like a lot of times when you watch old shows, they don't hold up.
Right.
The humor in Andy Griffith, I think, fits that kind of country thing that I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's they're not over explaining the joke. They just
Right.
show you something funny and
Right.
don't tell you it's
Which
funny.
is good humor. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Yep.
Well, it was smart humor, and I think that would surprise people about because when you talk about Kentucky, it's not like this highbrow thing, but it's an intelligence. There's an intelligence there to that humor.
Hmm.
But my parents didn't grow up in Kentucky. My parents grew up in Missouri, so they were transplants.
Okay.
And I've kind of understood more of that since I've been older because to me, we just lived in Kentucky. I
Sure.
didn't understand what my parents were like before I
Yep.
knew. So,
Hmm.
but yeah,
Interesting.
my
Yeah.
dad's my dad's my mom's funny too, but my dad is in a different way.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's very. I mean, you very much are. I mean, it's humor is a way. Like I know you see the world, and probably another way we have connection through. And and honestly, like I didn't say this at the very beginning of the podcast, but back to my experience, because coming before Thornwell, I did have a lot of experience working with kids and kids in really difficult situations with mental health, and so I know good people. Um, I know, when I observe someone that's really good with kids and, or just good with people, I should say, I can spot that. And I think that was very apparent right out of the gate with you of just like, you have a way of understanding human behavior, humans, how people think, ways to relate to them, ways to disarm things. I mean, and some of it's your training and experience, I know, but like you also have a gut that kind of, some people just have that. And like, I kind of would joke, like you were like, for me, like the, child whisperer or whatever, of like, and that was part of your job. But I mean, to be able to, kind of see through what are behaviors and try to kind of strategize, or kind of like, okay, well, here's what you're seeing, but let's kind of go to the root of what's happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That is a huge part of it, but it's so hard to do when you're with kids day in and day out,
yeah,
because you just get worn out. And
yeah,
that's why, back to what we were talking about before, you have to, when you have people working with kids, you have to give them everything they need.
yeah,
You have to have that support, because you need to be able to keep your humor. If
yeah,
you lose your humor about things, it just becomes, your life is just a lot more difficult. But that's one of those things, like when you watch a sitcom and they're in a frustrating situation, and it's like, this is funny to us watching, but it's not funny to them in the situation.
right.
And I think that is a lot of times when you're working with kids, you're there and you kind of have to back up and say, okay,
Yeah,
this is really hard,
yeah,
but it is funny.
right.
We're gonna laugh.
Yeah. No, and I talked to, in one of the previous episodes, with my friend Jeff Alden in St. Louis, of, we worked at a mental health agency together. And yeah, I mean, we were talking too about, I mean, whether it's gallows humor or whatever, I mean, you have to be able to process
Yeah.
and cope with even the really hard things in a way that sometimes is just humorous. And, yeah, I like what you just said there too, of like, it reminds me of, I can't remember exactly the line, but like, when things change us, or we're encountering hard things, when that thing changes who we are, that's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because now we're no longer facing that thing in the way that, sort of we're gifted to do so. We're no longer ourselves.
I first came to that realization when I have a heart issue and got a defibrillator, and I got shocked by it 5 times one morning, shortly after I got it, and it was so traumatizing to me.
Mm.
And I remember one of the things I realized, there was 2 things that I felt were really interesting, and it's taken me a while to like process it and everything. And I don't want to talk forever about this,
Mm-hmm.
but it was the first time I was like, there's nothing funny about this. Like I could not see any humor in it.
Huh.
And I told Ashley, at the time, like, this is the first time I've not been able to see anything funny in what I'm going through. And the other thing that struck me about it was, I felt vulnerable around people for the first time, like in a way I hadn't felt before. Like, I remember we were doing some kind of like rafting trip, and these younger guys were like drinking and being kind of obnoxious, floating by us. And I was like real intimidated, like, oh no, like what if they try to start something? Like, I can't do anything because of my,
right.
And I hadn't felt that way before. It's not like I'm walking around like,
Right.
somebody waiting for somebody to try me. It didn't dawn on me before but for the first time I felt very vulnerable.
Wow.
So,
and limited in a way. Like, that's, wow.
yeah. And
like, your mortality kind of hits you, of like,
yeah. And like, I just felt like, if these guys do something, I can't defend myself because I'm scared I'll get hit on my defibrillator or my heart will do something.
Right. Yeah.
So that stuff like that makes you more empathetic, and it definitely made me more empathetic to people, because, like I said, I'd never even considered that before.
Sure.
So that's a blind spot for me, that people feel like that. Like women say they're afraid to be in certain situations or whatever. Like that, it's hard to relate to that until you go through something.
Dude, that's such a good point, man. That is so true. Like, and that example recently, you said, like, our, oldest, or our only daughter's driving now. And like, I've had to think through that lens a lot more, as like, what, both as a protective dad, but just what it would be like for all females, that, just the inequity of, like, we have a state park nearby us, amazing trails, amazing, beautiful. Like, I don't care what guy you are. I don't care. Even, I mean, any guy can go, you're safe, you're fine.
Yeah.
But women don't live in the same world as that.
Yeah.
Do I have a dog? Am I whatever, and it's like, but yeah, we don't think of those things.
Yeah.
So,
what are we talking about? I got us off track with the heart thing.
Well, yeah, but just empathy. But I don't know. I guess we were talking about like, well, it was a good setup to what I wanted to ask you next as we kind of go through this journey of your life. But like, um, you and Ashley, as a couple, have really given yourselves to helping kids and families. And I mean, what did lead you into that work? Because for years you were involved in some way in foster care and other things, family. But where did all that come from? And talk a little bit about
Um, it was kind of a selfish thing, to be honest. At first, it wasn't like a calling that we felt. Um, I I've always felt like where do I fit as
that.
far as like how do I make a living? Where do I fit? I mean, I think I'll always be like that.
Hmm.
But so I got a degree in writing from college. Ashley and I got married in college. We had our son while I was a senior in college, and so when I graduated, it was kind of like, well, what do we do? And we had a friend that went to work at a group home. I didn't even know what a group home was, and he told us about it. And he was like, yeah, you live there, so you don't really have many expenses, and the pay is decent, so you can save some money. So we said, well, we should go do that for a year and try to save money for a down payment on a house, and then we'll get a real job. And,
Right.
and so we did. We went and we saved money the first year, which really has the fact that we saved some money up and had like a emergency fund. It was a down payment for a house, is what we were planning back when that was enough for a down payment on a house. But after the first year, it's like, well, we love these girls we're working with. We don't want to go anywhere.
Huh.
So, but it still felt like, well, we had a plan. So I applied for a job in Lexington, Kentucky,
Okay.
and I didn't get the job, and that was like the only one I applied for, I think. But I just remember the sense of relief, like, thank goodness I didn't get that job because we didn't want to go anywhere. We loved the
Hmm.
kids. So
Hmm.
anyway, we ended up staying there 3 years, and it's just like because we wanted to.
Yep.
Is that you?
Try to silence my phone, and it came.
But anyway, that's how we got involved with it. And then we heard about Thornwell. We wanted to move south from Illinois. So that's how we ended up at Thornwell. So it
Gotcha.
wasn't like this thing like we've got this big heart for foster kids or whatever. It wasn't that. It was a practical decision that turned into something that
Hmm.
we feel like God prepared that for us,
Sure.
had our steps numbered, and we were
Yeah.
too ignorant to even know that at the time.
Oh man. But you still entered a space that few would do. So like there was still, whether it was like kind of from, the camp growing up and,
Yeah,
kind of what you saw with your parents.
yeah.
But like,
That
you know what
goes
I mean? Like,
good.
yeah. Because I think like humans are complex. Like all of our motives are mixed, and it's like I don't think it's like denigrating the fact that, it wasn't like you were just looking to save the world or whatever, but that I guess that you still did choose a route that was humanitarian of
Yeah. And
meeting,
we
yeah.
and that I mean I shouldn't say it the way I did because we wanted to do something that would make a difference.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we were just like how do we make the most money and
Hmm.
save the most money. So we were searching for something
Sure.
and it was put right in front of us and it
Right. Yeah.
needed to be.
Yeah.
So I'm
That's
thankful.
interesting.
But like you said about growing up at camp, like my siblings are both teachers. One
Oh,
teaches.
really? Okay. So it
So
really did
yeah, it's definitely
trickle down.
uh,
So, wow, that's cool. Well, kind of moving on, we talked about this at the very beginning, but music's been another, that means a later formative thing in your life. It sounds like maybe not as, always love music, but as far as let's land the plane here for a while on Wasperjaws, the band, and kind of musically what's going on. So you alluded to this already, but when did you start playing music and kind of you became more of a musician than just a lover of music?
well, I did always love music. I loved music in high school. I think the first thing that got me interested, we had two guys at our church growing up that would play guitar sometimes.
Okay.
Both of them good, very good musicians. And I remember they would just strum through a chord, and I would think, I just want to be able to do that. So that was kind of like when I was a kid, I would think that. Then my dad started learning to play guitar a little bit when I was really young. And I remember he played a song called Dark as a Dungeon on our porch and sang it. And I was like, I can't, like, I didn't know you could do that. But I just thought it was
Superhero.
a thing. Um, but then again, like watching other people, when I was in high school, I had a couple friends that picked up guitar. They were just naturally good musicians. And I can still remember songs that they played on guitar, and it just blew my mind that it sounded like the song. They'd play "Simple Man" by Leonard Skinner, "Strong Enough" by Sheryl Crow. What's the song I was just thinking about? It's like "Durner, Durner, 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 I am still living with your ghost." You remember that?
Oh yes,
On the West Coast. But yeah, I
90s, isn't
remember
it?
my friend was playing that. Did you remember who it was?
It's a 90s
Everclear?
song. Everclear, yes, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But to see somebody do that, like I don't know, it was just kind of like baffling to me. Like I know somebody that can make their guitar sound just like what I'm hearing on the radio. And so that I kind of got one and started trying to do that too. Neil Young, "Needle
Yeah.
in the Damage Done"
Yep.
is
Yep.
another one that
Nice.
um, so anyway, I just played in my room and didn't really do anything publicly. Ashley and I played a couple things in college, and I could barely sing a song. Um, and then I started writing songs, and in 2015 or 16, I put out an album by myself that I just recorded in a room, and I played several instruments on it. And that was the first thing I called Wasperjaws. And I decided Wasperjaws was going to be my artist name because my brother gave me the idea. That we had a teacher in high school that would call people Wasperjaws for whatever reason, and he told me if you use that as a band name, it will be the only Google result. So I thought that was really smart. So that's why I chose that.
I did. I knew the story of like a little of that, but I didn't know the Google part of like, yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah,
Like,
and
no one's
I've thought about that since then because like all the popular band names from the '60s and '70s, you couldn't even use that as a band name because no one would be able to find you on Google. Like
right.
the Who, the
Right.
um,
Yeah, you're right.
all the animal names.
This is true. The animals.
But
Yeah,
you
yeah.
really got to think about optimizing
The
your Google
monkeys.
results now. Yeah, the monkeys.
Man. Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. So fast forward a little bit to, well, by the way, I was actually hanging with friends last week and I bring out the old album, the old freshman album. Oh yeah. Sometimes, I mean, one of them is that the song you wrote about your daughter and protecting her. And it's satirical, like kind of,
Yeah,
violent, what a dad would do to someone that harmed his daughter. It's like,
yeah.
My Little Girl, is that what, or my,
I don't remember what it's called. Oh, it's called "By the Way"
by the way. Okay. Yeah.
because
Because
the setup is I describe how sweet my daughter is, and then by the way, if you hurt
if
her,
you hurt her,
and
yeah.
the chorus is different ways I'll torture you.
That's right. But the style of music doesn't. I mean, it's like always like if you listen to like Ben Folds or something, drop the F bomb, and it's like it's coming off of a piano solo or something, and it's like, okay, this isn't.
It's a
But
very kind of like a little like I used to sing it with Stella as she was going to bed at night.
yeah. But especially when we have friends that like have daughters and stuff like that, I often bring that one out, and it's like
Yeah,
everyone's really smiling, and yeah,
I was
yeah.
embarrassed about that one because, not embarrassed, but I was like, oh, what are people going to think about this?
Is that
But
too much?
people saw the humor in it,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's like I'm not joking. Like
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
But it is funny.
I'll
It's
show you one of your eyes as one of your eyeball. Show me your other eye. It's like,
um, I it kind of speaks to the way I think about writing lyrics and writing in general. Is like I'm not somebody that thinks everything I write has to be true. I don't believe
Sure.
something I say,
yeah,
but it's describing a feeling or what you're going through right then. And if I found something out, that's exactly the rage I would feel. Even though I know people are going to be like, "Well, you shouldn't feel like that," and
right,
the peace above all that.
right,
Yeah, but in the moment, you're not thinking that.
right. Let's be honest here
I
now.
wouldn't be. So
Yeah, it's honesty. It's absolute honesty, which is everyone loves honest songwriting. That's what it is. So I know I've asked. I always love this, and you probably roll your eyes, but I mean, you have a really cool little Avett Brothers story. I mean, do you mind just for those of us that have not heard that?
okay, well, to back up a little bit, I became comfortable playing music in front of people in church. We were like that. We got asked to lead the music a couple times, and that's when I became like, okay, I can sing and play guitar in front of people. The other album that I did in 2016 that we were talking about, that I've never played any of those songs live. It wasn't like I had a band or whatever. And around the time of COVID, I had these songs, and I asked Everett and Dave to join me, and then we started playing as an actual band. So we recorded that album in my living room and put it out. And I sent, while we were recording it, I wanted to send it to John Prine. He's my hero,
Okay.
my songwriting hero. I just
Yep.
love him. And he died of COVID. He was like one of the first ones, like famous people that passed away from COVID. And anyway, that was like heartbreaking in a different way. But I was
Yeah.
like, so another band that's been real influential for us that we have seen live a bunch of times in kind of our younger years was the Avett Brothers.
Yep.
And I like Scott Avett in particular. I like them both, but I like Scott Avett. So anyway, I took our album when we were done, like 2 or 3 days after we finished it, I mailed him a copy and just said like, hey, like turn this on when you're painting or something.
Jeez.
You need to pick somebody up or something?
No, it's they can wait. I'm sorry. No, good.
But I just sent it and said like, hey, I've appreciated your songwriting. I was going to send this to John Prine, but because he's a Prine fan too.
Yep.
And just kept it short. And so I mailed it to him and just didn't think much more of it. And then like it probably was only like 4 or 5 days later. And the album had only been out for like maybe 7 days, a week or something. I might be getting my dates messed up, but
Okay.
I was on Instagram as we were going to bed, and I'm scrolling through, and I see our album, like the cover of our album, and I'm like, what? Like, what is? Like, I'm trying to think. Like, I thought I was on. All these thoughts happen at once. I thought I was on my Instagram, and then I saw that Scott Avett on his Instagram had shared the album, and said. The caption was, give this album some love and it will love you back.
Wow.
And I was just like, what the heck? Like, I couldn't believe it. And so it's not like that caused us to go viral or become real popular,
Yeah.
but so many people have listened to it because he recommended it. And I've heard from people, we get people still listening, a ton of listens in North Carolina, which is where they're from. But we get people listening all over the place. And I know it's because Scott Avett has fans everywhere.
That's wild.
That if he says listen to something, they'll listen to it.
That's crazy.
And it's had some staying power that I feel like, they liked it too. It wasn't like because he did and then moved on. Like I feel like people have had a really good response to it.
You're I can't imagine how, you described it. I mean, the surreal, shocking nature of that, but also like the kind of shot in the arm in a good way of like, what that has to do for your confidence of like, right? I mean, like
because we didn't have any plans for it. Like we had the songs, we loved playing the songs, and we wanted to make the album and give it to family and friends, put it on Spotify. So we did that, but we didn't even have any plans to like play live or anything like that. And it's been interesting because we've been approached about playing live more than we planned to. It's not like we're doing it all the time, but
sure.
When it first started coming up, it's like, I guess we can play those because it wasn't like we were thinking like, let's put out an album and really try to,
sure,
make it to the top.
Right.
That just wasn't anything we were thinking about.
It's got to be such a rare story kind of in that realm of where, because when that's not the goal, but just sort of for fun or because you really respect the guy, hey, I'm kind of curious. I want him to hear it. Yeah. Nothing that, you had this end game of, well, then if you can use this platform, I mean, but for that to sort of like do what it did. And then still like that didn't change your plans. Like we're okay. Now we can like ride this wave, even if you tried to. It's just cool. It's like just a gift. And
my like the most positive outcome I thought of when I sent that to him was he would either write me back or write me on Instagram or something.
Yep. Yeah.
Say, hey, I listened to it and I liked it. Good job. And that would have been
right. And
that would have been the best thing.
The world meant the world.
that's the best case scenario that I thought.
Sure.
So for him to share it, like it was a really kind thing to do. He doesn't. I mean, he doesn't share like a lot of artists on his Instagram. It's not like he's hyping people up all the time.
Yeah.
So it really did. It just meant a lot, and it kind of felt validating in a way. Like, okay, somebody that I like thought this was good too.
That's so cool. I love that story. And it's kind of a reminder too of in my life too. And we can all think in our lives. I think God just gives us gifts like that too, just out of the blue.
Yeah.
Loves us so much and is like, you know what? I care about your music. I care about your little indie album. And I've got a little surprise for you today. And you're going to wake up and you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
feel like one day when we look back, we can have these stories with him and conversations. It was like, yeah, that was a total, I just wanted to show I loved you that day.
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean, it reminds me of something that we've probably talked about. I know we've talked about it, but it's like when you're a kid and you hear about heaven and you're like, we'll be worshiping God all the time. And you think, you know, like, well, we're going to be standing around singing all the time. Like, really? But I guess it's just like getting older or something, but it's like you start to understand that your existence should be a worshipful experience.
Right.
And like the things that I do for fun, the talents that God has given me,
Yep.
the interests that I have, that should be a worshipful experience. It doesn't have to be like I've got my music and I've got my activities and then I go and worship separately.
Yep.
Like it's, living your life and trying to love the people around you and be generous, like that is a worshipful experience.
Yes.
And I think we complicate things way too much.
Yeah.
In thinking about what is worship and what's not.
Oh, 100%. That's a whole podcast. But, and like you said, there's a great line by Saint Irenaeus that says, you know, the glory of God is man fully alive, living fully alive.
Yeah.
That alone. Right.
Yeah.
That alone. So, man, that's so good. So you've talked a little bit about this as well, but just kind of the inspiration of your songwriting just comes kind of from what, just daily as you encounter things in life, and what's behind that?
I try to write things that are true. That might contradict what I said before. True in the moment, authentic, but not all my songs are like true stories. I mean, I make it up. I try to. My natural style is to write something that's either sad or funny, and I do think one of the hardest things to do in songwriting is to write a funny song, because it's easy to write. What do you call them? Like
parodies and stuff, or like Weird Al, or
parody, but like like Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer.
Oh yeah. Kitschy.
A novelty song.
Okay.
You can write that's not that hard to write a novelty song.
Sure.
But it's kind of like once you've heard the joke, you don't really need to hear it again.
Right.
But injecting humor, like I talked about with that John Prine and Wendell Berry do in their books and music.
Yeah.
But having humor in a song is important to me. So I don't know how that's inspired. I write stuff down on my phone all the time. Like just I'll think of a phrase or I think of a good rhyme, and I've got a note on my phone that's like a mile long that sometimes I'll just look through and see if I see anything good. But a lot of times I'll have an idea for a song and it'll just have to fester in the back of my mind for like a year or two.
Yeah. Just a slow boil kind of, or a slow simmer.
Yeah. Like we're going to have a song on the new album called Best of the Blessed. And Dave gave me the idea. He called me one day and he said, "Hey, I was thinking about a funny scenario that you need to write a song about." And I was like, "All right." He said, "You need to write a song about a woman who loves Jesus so much that when she gets to heaven, she cuts the line to meet him first."
Okay.
I just thought that was such a funny, like,
picturing that.
It's such a funny scenario because it describes the type of person that we all know.
Right.
But I thought it was so funny, but I was like, I can't do anything with it because it's too hard to write that. And it just, that's one of those that festered in my brain for a long time. And then I kind of thought of one line. And from there, I just got real excited and wrote the whole thing in like 15 minutes.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And Dave, I didn't have the tune down exactly, but Dave came over and got on the piano and we kind of worked on that together. But the lyrics, it was like, once it happened, it happened. So I kind of have to have an angle and know what I'm doing with it. And then once I've got the angle and my rhythm down, then it's
Yep.
pretty easy to just fill in words.
Gotcha. Yeah. It is interesting. You and I have talked at length about the creative process, and there's different approaches to it. But I mean, I really resonate too with just, um, unlike some people that can be very like mechanical about it, or like, almost regimental about it. Like, if I just keep pumping out enough stuff every day, it's like something will rise up, but I'm kind of like in my writing, or I don't know, I think what you're saying, at least in some of this, is just, almost like obey the creativity and wait till it
Yeah.
strikes. And when it does, look out,
Yeah.
kind of almost, yeah.
And I can feel it too. Like I know when I'm in a creative
Yep.
mode.
Yeah.
Um, I told Ashley about it the other day. Like, well, this is weeks ago. I was like, I'm in a creative mode right now, and you just feel like your brain is like humming and stuff.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and I've gone years without writing a single song. It's not like I'm trying to do it all the time, but part of that is when you're busy with everything else and you're never bored and you don't have time, it's hard for anything to happen.
Right.
Because I've seen people say the same thing too. Like you need to be writing every day. I
Right.
don't. I don't do that. Maybe it'd be better if I did. But it's kind of like something hits me and I'm excited about it. When I'm
Yeah.
excited about it, I'm
Yeah.
like, can't wait to finish it. I can't write. I can't wait to think about what the character is going to do in verse 2.
Right.
Just an exciting time because it's like I've got one. I've got
Yeah.
something.
I've hooked something.
Yeah.
Start reeling.
But
That's,
it
I love
it
that.
really is like that's when I feel the most joyful. I think in life is when
Mm.
I've got something going and I
Yeah.
just need to build it.
I
And
love that.
it doesn't always happen like all at once. And sometimes you got to come back and edit things.
Sure.
But I really do. I take it seriously. When I write a song, I want every word to sound right.
Mm.
I don't want a rhyme to sound forced.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just want it to sound right, and
Yeah.
I get passionate about that.
Well, and I feel like, just your album, it's a 10-song album, this current album, 10-song album called Nine Good Songs, right? Which is already hilarious title. But I feel like that's what that is. It's authentic, it's humorous, it's really good music. Scott wouldn't have given it a shout out like that if, I mean, I'm
Yeah,
sure he gets that all the time, and
I
you're not
wondered about.
just, or maybe not all the time, but enough to where it's like he's not doing that for everybody.
Yeah,
So I think that's why it's so validating.
yeah. And I forgot what I was going to say. Go ahead.
Yeah, but so then you have a new album coming up. Any words to say around that, or the
I'm
launch?
hoping it'll be done in October. I really like the idea of releasing it in October. That's when
Okay,
we did our last one in
sweet.
October 22, I think. But yeah, we've already narrowed it down. We're going to put 10 songs on it. And a lot of them are upbeat this time. I had some slower ones on the first
Mm-hmm.
album, and a lot of these are going to be upbeat. Like they're really fun to play. Oh, I know what I was going to tell you. It's something weird. Is every time I write a song, I feel like it'll be the last one I ever write.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Like it's
yeah.
I I just don't feel like I have the ability to write a song. And when
That's
it happens, I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, that's, I think I talked to you about one time, because I used to read a lot on creativity and, like, kind of creating things, and that's a very common thing
Is it really?
from creatives. It's this kind of scarcity thought that, like, almost like this fatalistic, like every time this gold is gonna, like, that's it.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, yeah, that's a common experience, because then it's like, am I never gonna have this again?
Yeah.
And it's
Most
like,
of it is with tunes because I'm not a great
okay,
musician. I'm not a
yeah,
great
yeah,
musician or anything like that.
yeah.
And so to come up with a new melody or tune, it's like okay, I've exhausted everything I'm capable of. But that's why it's fun to play with Dave and Everett too, and Ashley.
Yeah,
They
yeah, yeah.
had
Well,
uh,
I'll have links to, your album in the show notes, and yeah. So, but you're thinking October maybe for the launch of
October. It's going to be called In-Law Country.
In-Law Country.
Unless
Okay,
we change our minds or something on that,
okay.
I think it's a good album title.
I love it, man.
And
And you already have the merch for it already.
yeah, we're real excited about it. I mean, Dave and I were just recording last night.
Okay.
And we looked at the list and we were like, we got a good list here. Like
Wow,
this is going to be good.
that's
So
pretty sweet.
I
Very
know
cool.
everybody says that when they write something or record something, like this is my best work yet. I don't know. Two of the
For
songs,
real here.
I should say, two of the songs my brother wrote. So we're
Oh,
going.
wow. Okay. Got some family infused in this one. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to turn the corner on the final stretch. It's been a long convo. It's been a great one. But I'm going to ask you two final closing questions. One is, we're midway, it's colonoscopy time for it's,
Yep.
we're at that stage. We're mid 40s. What are you most proud of in your life as you kind of reflect of today, or most proud of things?
I'm proud. I didn't think about this, but I'm proud that that Ashley and I made it.
Hmm.
That we're here.
I
Um,
love that.
yeah, she got pregnant in college before we were married, so we got married in a fever, as Johnny Cash sang. Um, but not an ideal start. Not what anybody planned
Hmm.
for us or like hoped would happen. Um, and just kind of made our way. Definitely been through some like real rough times,
Hmm.
and came from totally different types. Not totally different types of families, but the way Ashley and I's brain works and what we think is should happen and does happen is very different. And we were very young and immature, but we've raised two great kids.
Mm.
We've taken care of a bunch of kids, and we've been good to our family and friends for the most part. And I think I'm not saying we've arrived or anything like that. We've built a business together in our hometown. It's I'm proud of that. And like along the way, our prayer has always been like, God, like lead our steps, like
Mm.
make it obvious for us. Please make it obvious for us. Like don't let us go down the wrong path.
Yeah.
Um, we've tried to do that, and like I said, we've made so many mistakes, but I'm proud of where we are right now. I'm proud of my kids.
Mm.
I'm proud of the community that we have. So yeah, I feel good about that. Thank you for
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah, man. And that I love too that it kind of felt like this was an answer that just kind of came up. I hadn't really maybe had your set answer going to that. Because I think that's also really truthful and real. And just being, someone on the outside of both of you guys, I think a lot of people would say that as a couple too, like you guys have a glow, and whether it's kind of working together, through the years and being real estate agents together, and just I don't know, like you guys are, like you have I've gotten to come to some of your backyard, jam part kind of music parties. I don't know what you call it, where you are playing live music or invite others to play, and
Yeah.
and you've kind of just opened up the community to like and you guys are super gifted at just hosting and welcoming together doing that. And that's, man, so you
Yeah.
should be proud of that.
We've found that out together. It's something we like to do. I think both of us just like truly care about people, and that's not
Yeah.
something you can
Yeah.
force. It's not something you can
Yeah.
fake. So yeah,
Yeah.
we've just the people we've met here they've just been great.
Yeah.
From the moment we got to South Carolina, we've made good friends,
Yeah.
and I feel so grateful for our community.
It's awesome. Well, and like as I was thinking about this interview and I was like, I think the common thread I think about in your life as I just think about you is someone who just really shows up for people, and makes people, um, better, makes places better. And I mean, I'm not just saying that to be, I mean, it really is um, like you just serve and give, and it's really cool. So, final question. As someone I see who's inspires me, where do you find some of your own inspiration?
Like creatively, you mean?
Creatively, anything. Just honestly, the question is a little bit more in my mind of like, and again, my pattern of this has sort of been middle age, kind of that idea of, as T.S. Eliot talks about, is, where's the life we lose in living? It's just like you can, middle age, sometimes it can be like, do I have a pulse still? Like where what makes you alive or find life?
Yeah. I've got a great family, like extended family. We do things together. We're going to the lake together for the 40th time this year. Um, I just I've just seen throughout my life how important it is to have friends and family.
Mm,
And, I try to take things away from older people that, try to look at people 10 to 20 to 30 years ahead of me and think, what do I want to be like when I'm that age?
mm,
Um, I think I think that's been a big thing. I don't know why I'm thinking about this right now, but in our job, Ashley and I see a lot of houses that
mm-hmm.
the people have passed away and their kids are selling it. And you go through and you see all their stuff, and that makes you think about your house and all your stuff. And that's going to be, you're going to be the one with an empty house with all your stuff there someday.
Right.
Or it's your parents.
Yeah.
It makes you see things like you're faced with it all the time.
Sure.
And so, really, even me deciding to actually do something with music, part of that was even thinking like, I've got these songs and I may die.
Yeah.
The heart thing that I brought up was the inspiration of the first one. I was like, I got to get these recorded.
Right.
I don't know. I'm probably like really making a mess of your question, but I feel inspired, and I feel like let's enjoy this now. Let's do the best we can now, because I just have this attitude of like most of this stuff doesn't matter.
Yeah.
None of the things we're worried about matter. The money doesn't matter. It's that there's things that matter, and I see that when you see a lot of people at the end of their lives, it
right.
You consider your own. So I think that's actually been good for us.
Man. Well, very cool. And then the way you kind of overlapped it with seeing houses and possessions and kind of what you see is left or whatever and didn't matter or whatever. Like, yeah, just going after the things that are what does matter, pursuing it and living life that way. So.
I feel good about this. We've gone on for an hour and 45 minutes. So if people made it this far, my hat's off to you.
Well, the cool thing about these is I don't like to cap. I mean, I've kind of been like, whatever. I mean, there's all this strategy around like, have a podcast be this long, whatever. Don't care. Yeah. The other thing is like, these are spaced every couple weeks. You got 2 weeks to the next one. Okay. So you got some time. Well, bite-sized chunks.
The thing I like about it is this is pretty much how our conversations go every time we get together.
Yeah. And
so that's credit to you.
Well, thanks. I mean, but that's kind of what I've kind of in this podcast. I just want to have a conversation. And I think a lot of times conversations like with people that are interesting or sharing stories, like other people like to hear that too. And like, hey, let's just have a wider audience. And like, it's just going to be like we're in the kitchen hanging.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, thanks for hanging for this long.
All right, man. Enjoyed it.
All right. Until next time. Hope you enjoyed the episode today. Check out the show notes for any links or resources shared in the episode. If you enjoy the podcast, it would be really appreciated if you'd subscribe, leave a 5-star review, and share it with friends. May we all remember these words from writer Mary Oliver. Instructions for living a life. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it.